Africa has an indecisive president. That's according to some people, including political editor at News 24, Qaanitah Hunter. In an opinion piece, Hunter says President Cyril Ramaphosa has consistently demonstrated that he would rather face the consequences of his indecisiveness than act. So let's speak to Qaanitah Hunter about that opinion piece. She joins us now via Zoom. Qaanitah, thank you so much for making time. First of all, we're hearing that the cabinet reshuffle may happen by tomorrow. There are those that are even saying that it could be as soon as tonight at 8 p.m. But knowing our president, he may still want to take more time consulting. What are you hearing from your sources in government about when the president is likely to make a move?
I think that it is imminent and that the cabinet reshuffle will be happening shortly. I think a matter of timing will have to be in relation to how the president uses his time around consulting and informing people. So that would be the deciding factor, whether it happens tonight, tomorrow, over the weekend, or even next week. But it is quite definitive, I think, at this point, more than ever, that the president will be making changes to his executive.
Yeah. We have known the president, Qaanitah, to be indecisive for some time now. It's almost like he waits for the pressure to pile up until he has no other option before he can show up. His supporters will argue that, well, he's a process man, he consults, he allows for debate, but the delays in taking action, this inaction and indecisiveness have consequences.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you see the consequences of his actions, by means of example, you see it. Let's take the example of Minister in the presidency, Jackson Mthembu, who had passed away months ago now. And the instability that exists by having an acting minister there, and the instability in terms of decision-making around all the entities that report to that minister is absolutely noticeable, right? And so the reality of it is that this indecisiveness does not come without consequence. And the point that I was making in my column is that perhaps the reshuffle is really shouldn't really be our focus, and the broader issue of the president's reticence to take action, even when the action favors him and it's for his own benefit. Like, for example, the appointment of a director general in his office took a year to process, despite having time, despite even having someone identified for the job. Why is that the case? You can continue that same argument in relation to his spokesperson, Kusela Diko. This is a political decision that the president could have sorted out or have pressured officials to get the process done within a year. It's over a year now. Now, when you talk about the security cluster, and you said, obviously there's this imminent reshuffle, Clement, there's a lot of focus on the security cluster and their failures in relation to the unrest that plagued KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng in July. The reality of it is that there is so much of instability in the top management of the security cluster, which it takes the president's signature to appoint permanent people there. And so if you reshuffle ministers, you not say, hypothetically speaking, the president comes out and says he has replaced the police minister. That does not resolve the issue that he has not yet made a decision around the future of the police commissioner, General Kehla Sithole. If you talk about the intelligence minister, Ayanda Dodlo, that does not take away from the fact that it's the president's signature that appoints a permanent director general when the SSA has not had a permanent director general in 3 years. It's his signature that appoints a replacement for the head of the domestic intelligence, whom we just heard that Advocate Moafe has now vacated the SSA because he has retired. And so the reality of it is that while a lot of us are looking at the reshuffle as a hope or means of some sort of definitive action by the president, his indecisiveness has already costed the country.
Yeah, I'm glad you've mentioned those examples. You've mentioned the issue around Kusela Diko. I mean, how do you explain this is probably the most crucial time for his presidency, what the country has experienced just since last year until now, and you haven't had a permanent spokesperson who can communicate for your office. You've mentioned the State Security Agency, no permanent DG. There's actually right now, as we speak, there's no permanent head of domestic intelligence because, as you say, Advocate Moefe has retired. His contract has come to an end. There's no permanent head of foreign intelligence. Robert McBride was recently suspended. People who support the president, Qaanitah, will say, well, this is his approach to governance. When he came in, he's also taken a different approach. Look at how he appointed the SARS commissioner. Look at how he appointed the NPA head. And this is his way of trying to say, I don't govern by myself, but I'm interested in the inputs of others before I can make the final decision.
I think that there was some sort of a sympathy towards that narrative that the president plays a long game and that he is a consensus builder. Clement, the president is in office for, what, almost 4 years now? And so if you talk about a long game, these ministers have been in office, for the, from 2019, it's 2021. So if the president, does not make any changes to his executive, you then have to assume the worst and assume that the president is quite comfortable to have a health minister who is so implicated in malfeasance in relation to tender irregularities. That means the president, so why do we constantly separate the president from his ministers, almost creating boogeymans there, and the president is just this person who's a victim of circumstance, when in fact it is his power, his signature, and it's his word that makes all of these senior appointments. And so if there has been failures in the security cluster, it's because the president saw these failures and decided to do nothing as a result of the long game. And now the long game has resulted in 300 people dying. And so if the president doesn't reshuffle his executive, it's him being then saying, I am completely happy with everyone who is serving in my administration. And then he has to take responsibility because he is the person who have appointed them.
And I like that point you make, Qaanitah. Then he must be able to take responsibility because, sure, we can understand that you're taking the long game, but if your delayed process then costs the country and costs lives and costs the economy, then you must be able to take responsibility for not having acted urgently. You've indicated that it won't make much of a difference when he reshuffles his cabinet because at the core, the issue here is his indecisiveness. How much of politics do you think are at play here? Because when he came in, he had to make political considerations, include some people in his cabinet that he himself knew that they were not best suited for those positions. But I've argued that, the president is probably in the most powerful positions right now. The hurdles are off the way. Ace Magashule is suspended. The MKMVA, which was the mouthpiece for former President Jacob Zuma, has been disbanded. There are political hurdles that are no longer the issue, and he's got the opportunity now to take action and show up. So what more political considerations is he still making?
Absolutely, I 100% agree with you, and I think that the consideration around, him not acting. Let's take the example of the health minister's William Kize, right? So he asked, despite enough evidence in the public domain, he decided to wait for an SIU report. The SIU report came. It's absolutely damning. It's sitting on his desk. But obviously, he has to make a decision that may have political ramifications for him. Now, his supporters want us to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that, no shame, the president can't act because he has to take into consideration politics. And so why must that be why must we as South Africans sort of worry about, whether a president is going to be unpopular in his party or not? But that I think is a consideration that is completely off the table now, because politics has shown that the president has actually, seemingly overpowered a lot of his detractors in the ANC. So was it all this time playing a long game, or was it just systemic indecisiveness that was packaged really well to say, he's a consensus builder, he doesn't want to provoke his detractors in the beginning, and now it's become part of the fabric of the Ramaphosa administration to not make decisions timelessly?
Yeah, and not making decisions timelessly is costing this country. Qaanitah, thank you so much for your insights. I really appreciate it. Qaanitah Hunter, political editor at News 24. Here's a